This is Michael Cowen, and welcome to Trial Lawyer Nation.
You need to show people the worst possible harm that negligence could have caused, because that's what the case is about.
What I'm asking you to do is to focus on what you can control, because that's where the power lies.
The Dalai Lama has a saying that in the face of anger, justice evaporates.
If you can't focus group it, you have to be very, very critical of your process.
The facts aren't good, you can't create a miracle.
We can agree to disagree and be zealous advocates for our clients.
Quit worrying about looking perfect. You're not going to. That'll come in time, but you can still be an effective litigator.
Welcome to the award-winning podcast Trial Lawyer Nation, your source to win bigger verdicts, get more cases, and manage your law firm. And now, here's your host, noteworthy author, sought-after speaker, and renowned trial lawyer, Michael Cowen. Today, we have a very special guest on the show. Actor, writer, and producer David Koechner is well known for his roles as Todd Packer on The Office and Champ Kine from Anchorman and Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues. He currently plays Bill Lewis on ABC's The Goldbergs and recently appeared on ABC's Bless This Mess, CBS's Superior Donuts, Showtime's Twin Peaks, Comedy Central's Another Period, and IFC's Stand Against Evil. David also voices reoccurring characters on Fox's American Dad and Netflix's F is for Family and The Epic Tales of Captain Underpants. An alumnus of Chicago's Second City Theater, David got his first break as a cast member on Saturday Night Live and has since become an instantly recognizable face, appearing in more than 190 films and television shows. When not filming, David performs live stand-up comedy across the country. Welcome to the show, David Koechner.
Today on Trial Lawyer Nation, we actually have a Hollywood actor joining us. It's a different episode, but it's going to be a great one. David Koechner is joining us. David, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again, Michael.
It's great to see you again too, and I really am glad because I've been talking. You come from the. I guess you've done live as well, but you've done a lot of TV, a lot of film, and we lawyers are having to adjust from having a live presentation in person, where we've actually worked with a lot of theater people on connecting with an audience, to now it looks like we're going to be doing things through Zoom and over cameras. And so I really appreciate you talking to us about how to communicate with other human beings through this medium of being on a screen and not being able to get the instant feedback and eye contact.
Yeah, because in the courtroom, there is a chemical reaction. There's a lot happening. It'll be interesting. My guess is because you'll also not be subjected to some of the chemical reactors that could potentially throw a case one way or the other. It might just come down to, well, these are the facts. So are they going to do trials via Zoom?
They just did one. They just had a gigantic verdict this week in a trial done by Zoom in Florida on a truck crash case. We're doing one. It's not all by Zoom. So we will be in a big courtroom with the jurors all spread out and everyone wearing masks. So we'll be in the courtroom with the jurors, but the witnesses will be mostly testifying either by Zoom or pre-recorded videos. And so it's a different way of communicating. And then, of course, we'll be wearing masks, so you lose a lot of facial expression. Yeah. We're having people that are a lot more spread out. So where to stand, how to not box out part of your audience. All these things are new to me. And since you have worked such bigger audiences than I have, I'm really looking forward to hearing your wisdom.
Wow. It's not often that the word wisdom is associated with me, but I will do my best.
To be consistently funny takes a lot more smarts and skill, I think, than people think it does.
I agree.
Yeah, I have a wife and children who tell me I fail miserably at it all the time.
Well, that's the best and worst audience always. And of course, the biggest win is when you actually get a laugh. And they couldn't help it. You're like, yes, because I'll swing at anything. And I'll swing 100 times. And then if on 101 I got to laugh, I'm like, yeah, it all paid off. Even if I had to exhaust them, I'll still take it.
My wife's like, I can't believe I married someone who would think that was funny. There's like something really wrong with you. So,
you think that, or your wife will think that?
No, she thinks that about me. Like, how could you find that humorous? That is disgusting.
Yeah. Well, Delisi, and I think you'll agree to this. All men are 14. And if you find one that's mature, actually to the age of 15, you're like, okay, I'll take that one.
Or they're just hiding it. It'll come out.
It'll come out.
Yeah, it'll come out.
God bless all women for taking on the task of whatever we are, right, Michael?
You know, my wife is a saint sometimes. I'll just leave it at that. None of us are perfect, but
I don't think you have to. I don't think you need the qualifier. All times.
Yeah. So let me get a little bit of background on you. So I've seen you on TV. I've seen you at the movies. What is your story? How did you get into comedy or acting?
Well, of course, like most people do, I was a political science major.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm from a very small town in central Missouri. By now, most of the country is well acquainted with the Lake of the Ozarks, but not necessarily for positive reasons. But geographically, I grew up half an hour north of the Lake of the Ozarks. So really central Missouri. And a very small town. My father was a manufacturer of livestock trailers for turkeys. I have to always say it that way, because if I say turkey coops, people go, oh, like in your backyard, like, haha, not funny. Okay, goofball. No, livestock transportation vehicles for turkeys. If you guys are in Texas, you know where Nacogdoches, Texas is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Bright Coop Company is the only other turkey coop company in the country. So they were always the ones they were our competitor, our lone competitor. So that's why I know where Nacogdoches is and how to say Nacogdoches. Anyway, so I started working for my father when I was 7 years old, which I think probably figures in mightily when it came to my career. In a small town where most people are farmers, my father grew up on a farm. His father was a farmer. You just start working. So my dad made me start working at 7. He probably gave me a break because I think he started working at the age of 4. So anyway, I've never been unemployed in my life. And I mean, that's all owed to my father. It's a great work ethic. And so you just figure it out and you do it. And being in a small town, I'd never met an actor. I did want to be an actor before I went to college. I'd never met one. I didn't know how a person went about doing it. And for your audience, of course, a lot of younger people, this is before the internet, so it's not like just readily available. And when you're at a place like that, I grew up with 3 television stations. So it's not like we have this exposure to information like we do now. Like literally you can know anything. Like if you don't know the answer to something, you're just not trying at all. Or these days, you think you know the answer to something and it's just completely wrong because you didn't try to dig deeper. But so I'd always loved politics. And in 7th grade, 2 things happened. In 7th grade, I realized I loved politics and I thought I want to do that. At the same time, I saw my cousin in a play, the high school play. There was one play in town a year put on by the high school, to tell you the cultural scene I was growing up in. And I saw her doing it. I was like, oh my God, that's what I'd like to do. So in a way, one could say that politics and acting, much like lawyering, are co-joined in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But it didn't cross my mind that I could ever be an acting major. So I chose political science. And after a couple of years in, about 3 years in, and maybe you remember, I don't know, what was your major?
Psychology. I was political science for a semester and then I switched.
I love it. We're the same girl. So about the 3rd year, I was realizing, because I'm from a small town, I thought political office was in my future, not realizing the odds and the difficulty of anyone getting political office. At about that year, I started realizing hey, small town boy, it ain't happening for you. Because what I've seen at that point, I thought to be in politics, you either come from a political family, you're incredibly wealthy, or you're the smartest person in any room you walk into. I was none of those things. So I just quit going to school. And my father said, well, Dave, I don't know what you want to do, but I don't think you want to go to school. Because I'd failed out, I was academically ineligible. And that's the best Cecil Koechner impression you're ever going to hear, by the way. And so I kicked around Columbia, Missouri, where the University of Missouri is, for a year. I was working 3 jobs. And I'd always been a fan of Second City because I knew a lot of people from Second City had gone to Saturday Night Live. So a buddy and I took a road trip up to Second City, saw the show, and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. So they had a poster for classes. I wrote down the number, went back home, came back, I don't know, that summer, because I knew we went in the winter. I came back that summer for a 2-week course. And that really solidified in my mind, in my heart, I guess I should say in my soul, this is what I'm going to do. So I was back in Columbia, working 3 jobs again to save up my money to move to Chicago. And then I started taking classes. So I started classes at the Second City and a place called the IO simultaneously. And then for the next 9 years, I was literally on stage 4 nights a week at least. So wow. I'm sure you're familiar with the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
10,000 hours.
Yep. You put your 10. So I definitely did that. And I happened to be in Chicago at a very magical time wherein a lot of the people we all know today, I worked with back there in Chicago, from Steve Carell to Steve Colbert to Tina Fey to Amy Poehler to Adam McKay, who wrote and directed Anchorman, to Andy Richter, from Conan to, it goes on and on and on. And it really was a real profound time to be there, which I don't think has been matched before or since, that you had this deep a talent pool happen to all be there, a confluence of talent that probably has never been seen before or since. And I was interviewed by a writer recently, and what I think happened was, so in 1975 I was 13. So in 1986 I had just turned 24, and that's when I moved to Chicago. So a lot of people, just like myself, were coming of age then and had either, just gotten out of college and thought, what's next? And then thought, I'm going to go do this thing I always wanted to do. And we all happened to land there at the same time. And I think that really probably, when you do the, Freakonomics, that book too, right? I think you could easily trace that back. Everyone went, oh my God, Second City, Saturday Night Live, we'll go there. And it happened. Now, why didn't it continue? I believe because people then want a shortcut. They don't start looking they're not looking at the work. They're looking like, oh, he get there then. I'll just do this and I'll go somewhere. I will say that for most of the people that I came up with, it was not about, oh, I want fame. It really was about, I want to be good. And there's a big difference. And now I think we all see that. And maybe you see it in your profession too.
Absolutely. You have to pay your dues. You have to go try a bunch of tough, crappy little cases and hone your craft and get those 10,000 hours in the courtroom before you can handle the big stage. At least you can get lucky, but to do it well over and over again, you just have to put in the practice. Yeah, I don't know. People say luck. I don't see it. But of course, they say luck is when preparation and opportunity collide. But it's about hard work, really, isn't it? It's about hard work. It's about working hard and being there to take the opportunities, because I think there's some luck involved, because you need to be, but if you're not out there, if you're not putting in the work, if you're not prepared to run with it when you get it, then it doesn't matter. But also, like you said, take the opportunity. So I have friends in show business that are very talented that you don't know. They haven't taken the opportunity, or they just, I hate to say, they don't show up on the day, or they don't demand of themselves to push through that one hard moment or that next step that a lot of times they might not even see it. It's almost like you're in the room, all the doors are open, and they keep going to the door that's locked. And so you're like, no, it's right there. It's like, well, I'm not ready for that door yet. Like, okay. And that is a mental game. I mean, it happens in every profession, but certainly in yours too. If you're not ready, if you're never ready up here, then you're not ready. It's not going to happen. Absolutely. So Second City, from where? What was your next? And that's already a giant break. What was your next break from there?
I got Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I was hired from Second City to Saturday Night Live, and I got there. Now this next speaks to not knowing what you want. So when I got Saturday Night Live, I'd already decided I was not going to stay there 6 years. The contract you sign is a 6-year contract, and in my mind, I'd already decided I'm going to stay here 3 years and go. Wow. Which is not a great way to connect with the universe and infinity, because they do hear you and go, "We heard you wanted out, so we're going to let you go." I wasn't very good. So the irony of being a political science major, I was not very good politically. Irish say, "I don't suffer fools gladly." And so when I saw things on the show that I didn't care for, I didn't hold my tongue. Or when they would sometimes come to me and say, "Hey, why don't you do this or that with that character?" And I would say, "That's a dumb idea." And it was, but I think, some of the people thought, well, he's being a bit resistant. And this was the year I was on. It was the first year that there was Mad TV and Howard Stern had a late night show. So it was the first time they had competition in late night. And the network had a little bit more leverage over Lorne Michaels than normal. And so they said there's going to be changes. And I was one of them. Lorne wanted to keep me, actually, but the network had more power at that time. Now, Lorne Michaels owns all of late night, so you can't tell him anything. He's got the Jimmy Fallon show, and he's got the Tonight Show and the Seth Meyers show.
I had no idea.
There ain't no push. Yeah, he produces those now. There ain't no push on that. But anyway, things worked out because within 6 months, I was, after I left the show, I was out in LA. I had a talent holding deal. I met the woman who was going to be my wife. And then, all things, marriages, I think, only last 20 years, right?
I hope not. I've already gone past that. So
God bless you. Anyway, so that happened. And then, I've been very, very fortunate. And all these steps that happened did set me up to be in a wonderful place where I've worked consistently since I started. So I guess since I got my first television job, I've worked consistently.
One thing you've done well is you've been able to take an outrageous character, but make it real. You don't look like a person who's pretending to be an outrageous character. What are some tips for how do you get into it? How do you?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that, and it's because you decide to do that. Me personally, I feel like, so let's take my two most famous ones. So it's Todd Packer and Champ Kine. Number one, they're horrible human beings. Like if you knew them, you go, no, thank you. I can't be around that. But really at their core, what's going on? They're desperate people. They're desperate for love. They're in pain, but they won't even look at their own pain. And so they're acting out here, all of these places outside of themselves to help try to define themselves. Even it means they're doing negative behavior that they don't even know that's negative to attract attention. At least they've got something. So I see these people who with with deep pathos, and I love pathos, the deep, dark pain inside. I believe so we all have a commonality of pain. So if through that type of work, I can tap into something that the audience recognizes, like there for the grace of God go I, that we can go, oh, that guy's in trouble. At least I'm not like that. But at the same time, for me, I like to enhance the idea of like, that's a bad person. It might be funny to laugh at, but remember, it's a cautionary tale too. We're all laughing at him, but remember, he's in pain. You don't have to make bad choices and bad decisions, but that person does, so we can laugh at that. But also, we know we're not going to act like that.
Yeah.
Just a short answer.
No, I love it because, part of what we have to do is, the courtroom, sometimes our own clients aren't lovable. And they act in ways, especially a lot of my clients have brain injuries. And if you have a frontal lobe brain injury, the client, I'm getting ready for a trial in November, and my client has a frontal lobe brain injury, and it makes him hard to like sometimes. I have to love the part of him that was there before he was hurt. I have to remember, like, it's not him that's saying this; it's the brain trauma that's saying this, and it's not his, it's not him, and not taking it personally, and Jerry Spence, who was a very famous trial lawyer, one of my mentors, is like, if almost everyone's mother loves them. So if you can find, no matter how unlikely they seem, what their mother loved, you can love them too.
That's interesting. So now, can you introduce that information at trial that my client has suffered a major brain
Yeah, the whole case is about this brain injury. It's about the truck that hit his car and caused him to suffer the brain injury. So that's what it's about. But this case has been dragging on, so I've been living with him for 3 years, and so you feel for him, but you also get the annoyance of dealing with people that do crazy things, that say crazy things, that
And as a dad, like, you're not a child, you can't make these bad choices, but then it's not within their power.
Yeah. So how do you? When you're playing, let's say, like I say, a character who's not a nice person, when you're getting into role, do you find what there is to love about them, or do you just go all in where they're not?
Well, like I said before, you find the humanity, just like you said. You find the humanity, and you present that. John Goodman is another guy from Missouri, and he's one of my favorite actors. And what I watch when I see him advocating for his character. That's what I see, almost like a lawyer. Like, I'm putting on this character's case, and there it is. And because they have to live, and this is how they do it. So you're almost making a defensible case for that person, for that character. So there's the part of that's there too. Yeah.
Each year, the law firm of Cowen Rodriguez Peacock pays millions of dollars in co-counsel fees to attorneys nationwide on trucking and company vehicle cases. If you have a case involving death or catastrophic injuries and would like to partner with our firm, please contact us. We have experience finding potential defendants that other firms miss, and we've added millions of dollars to cases by finding these sources of recovery. If you have a catastrophic injury or death case where the policy limits appear to be insufficient, give us a call. If we can find another defendant, we can partner on the case. And if we can't, then we won't ask for any of the fees. You can reach Delisi Friday by calling 210-941-1301 or send an email to podcast@triallawyernation.com. She will coordinate a time for Michael Cowen to speak with you in person or by phone to discuss the case in detail. And now, back to the show.
Another thing I want to ask, you have an awesome voice. You have a strong voice, and it's very recognizable. And I'm getting ready to try a case with a mask on, so I lose a lot of facial expressions, and then I don't have all the movement I normally get to have because I have, for safety restrictions, I can't get too close to people. I'm going to have to stay in a fairly narrow area. So I really want to work on the voice. Are there anything you've done to develop that voice, and anything you do before you perform to?
Well, it goes back to, like you said, the 10,000 hours theory. Now, this is a very, peculiar time. And that now you're having to, play basketball while holding a brick. And it's just not fair because a lot of it is that communication. So my guess is a person like yourself, you're going to be doing it in front of camera to figure out how you can be seen or heard and how you can't be seen or heard. Obviously, slowing things down is going to be a big part of it. Over chewing your words is my guess. What you tell me, what do? Do you guys practice on camera so you see what's working or not?
We don't do enough of it. Shockingly, I've told this before, but when I was a little kid and we did community theater, and so we were putting on a play that only our parents and maybe our grandparents would ever watch once, we spent weeks rehearsing. But lawyers will go in there on these big cases that they've been working for years, and they'll wing it, or they'll just do it in front of their partner the night before. And so, I've done some work in camera. It's painful to do camera work and see yourself. And you need to I find I can only do it if I have someone to coach me. I have to have someone walk me through it. I'm too self-critical.
Yeah. So are you doing it from the lawyer aspect? You're doing it as it. So do you do your opening argument on camera with the mask? That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm doing. I'm actually going up to Portland, Oregon to work with someone that works with people on nonverbal communication and other things. And we're going to go put me in front of a camera, and I'm going to go do it over and over again. And then she's going to go over the film with me and coach me on what's working, what's not working.
And that separates you from other people. And that's the difference. You look at the tape. I mean, that's what our athletes do. So yeah, it serves all of us, like what's working, what's not, especially because you're now, a lot of your toolbox has been taken away. Mm-hmm. So I applaud your efforts in that regard. That's the exact thing to do. But I will ask you this: please forgive yourself going into it, and don't think about, I've got to look at myself. They're looking at you, so just look at what are the good stuff they're seeing. We're all too critical of ourselves, most of us. There's nothing wrong with Delisi. You're one in Delisi, but. Yeah, you'll see it. Don't be too hard on yourself and take the wins. Take the wins, make the small adjustments.
You watch tape.
Add though, Michael, you have been practicing in front of the camera. He has been working with a consultant who has told him to do that. So sometimes when he speaks, I'll videotape and he'll watch it with her. So when he does do that, he improves and notices things. And I've noticed that too. That's good.
My guess is articulation is number one with the mask, but also, Michael, when we watch movies and you're looking, so think of it, it's a wide shot, right? Not the close-up, because the close-up's taken away in this regard because you got the mask. The wide shot. You can still slow things down and slow everything down. No flourish. The movement, the purpose. I'm sure you guys, you people, the royal guys, I'm sure you go through pointing to how do you hold your hand, all those things.
We work on it, but you'd be surprised how little training we have on it. We have to go find people from the acting and communications world to teach. They don't teach that stuff in law school. They teach you how to be a really
a side gig, David.
They teach you how to be a really boring communicator. It's
wow,
amazing. We go to these seminars, and some people are like, these are people that are supposed to speak persuasively for a living, and you're like falling asleep. And
wow,
come on,
that's inexcusable. But I would think now that you're faced with these obstacles, okay, then maybe you break down the obstacles, and then how do you overcome them one by one rather than all at once, because you can't. So number one is going to be just the articulation through the mask. Like you said, you don't want to be boring. So you don't want to take too many pauses. So maybe you do have to, you find that the grace notes of what the body gives for communication. I don't know. I mean, your job is so specific, and you have to make sure you maintain a certain, elegance and dominance at the same time, and an emphatic way to change that one last mind in the jury box. And who knows? I mean, look, we're all humans. For some reason, you might just not like somebody, and that's just going to be the way it is. And maybe that's the challenge. Maybe never. Go ahead.
And for us, it's a compelling story. And so if you don't have to have a perfect protagonist if you have a compelling story.
Right.
Although trials are different because the protagonists of our stories are actually the jurors.
Wow.
It's really their story that we're trying to create live in the courtroom, because they're the only ones with any power. They're the only ones that can do something. So we have to create something that we have to create a story that isn't quite over yet, and they have that act hunger to come in there and do the right thing and to be the heroes of the story at the end of the day.
I hear you. So you're creating a narrative. How do I sell the narrative? How do I support the narrative I have created? So, well, there you go. At least you've got a pathway. It's not as if it's never been done before. It's just never been done this way before.
Yeah, masked and limited. And so I was, you've done Second City. You've been on stage quite a bit, and you've got. So that's, not like the intimate conversation, me and 12 people 5 feet apart from each other. But it's still, you're there live. It's an interactive experience. You feel the crowd I'm sure when you're up on stage. as far as gestures and blocking and where you position yourself, how do you make the whole crowd feel part of the experience when you're there with that larger audience like you did on SNL or Second City?
Well, yours is a different thing in that you are talking directly to them and you're trying to give them the truth as you see it.
Right.
So those are the two things that are in common. And so when I'm acting on stage, I'm this way, hoping that they're being pulled into it emotionally and that the story supports their interest, like you said. So that's things that, are in your toolbox. Like if I'm in a bad movie, there's nothing I can do but rely on what I have. And I have been fortunate enough that, even sometimes you can take something that maybe ain't so good, but you're just going to do your darndest to make it the best you can do. And one of the things I remember very early on was I thought to myself, I never want to be a one-note actor. And as much as people might think, oh, he does the same thing, to me, no, I'm doing fractions up there. I really am. And you know where you want it to land, because as an actor, you have an intention. The only way I can get somewhere is I intend to do this. You can't do a line reading. It will never serve you. It will just fall flat. It's not truthful. There's no purpose behind it. There's no honesty. There's no connection to yourself. So I guess to answer the question would be, what's the connection that you have to the story? Like you said, that you have these people you're advocating for, and you do care, and you are in their corner, and things are at stake. And so if you have that belief and that knowing inside you, that's the compelling part of it. You're not just walking through it, because that would be malpractice, wouldn't it? Same for actors. It's malpractice to get up there and not having done your work. Now, sometimes we have lawyers, actors, doctors, God bless us, that aren't good, but they keep getting hired. So we can only control what we do and those we hire.
Yeah, I think, the public has no idea whether the lawyer is good or not, just like probably some directors don't know if that is good or not.
Or, what we might consider good doesn't really matter. Is it enough, or does it have a certain appeal that works? Right. There are a lot of pretty people in Hollywood that might not have that skill set to be an actor, but they're pleasing to look at. And so there you go. Okay. But in the end, that just doesn't last.
Yeah. So one of the things I was taught to do, and I wasn't taught why to do it. I've heard a lot about the rule of three, doing things in three. Have you learned anything about the rule of three on the acting end?
Well, it's for comedy. The rule of threes. Something gets introduced once as an idea. It gets used another way later in the story. And then the third time you hear it, then there's the laugh. So you're kind of setting things up. And it's almost like a triangle, I guess. Uh-huh. You're setting up three different ways, and then it lands home. Now, you're probably thinking about a rule of threes for emphasis. Now, and you can't just keep doing that. Because if I said, will you listen to me? Will you listen to me? Will you listen to me now? Okay, great. I got your attention. But if I keep doing that the whole trial, they're like, oh, God, please, will you just say it? But I would think if you introduce an idea early in the piece and then in the middle and at the end, boom, there it is again. It's just like good storytelling, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what I've been, I'm so glad you're on here, because I've been preaching to my people that we need to learn from, people are saying, oh, you can't tell you can't emotionally connect with people in a Zoom trial. And I'm like, I watched a 30-minute TV show, and that's not 30 minutes of TV. That's probably 24 minutes of TV and 6 minutes of commercials, at least. And I'm moved. I'm tearful. I am mad. I am pleased and laughed. I mean, I am making an emotional connection. I watched Ally McBeal, or what song was Shatner? Boston Legal.
Boston Legal.
And they would do these, 1 minute and a half closing arguments, and you feel compelled to do something. So, why can't, and that's all over a screen, and that's all, made up stuff. It's all fiction.
It always comes back to attention to detail, and the connection is the detail you have in your heart. And then, so if we look at this kid here, Delisi, right? I say Delisi. But this kid happens to have a golden heart, and it comes through her face. It's not something she's faking. It's just who she is as a person. So it resonates out, right? And her intention is just to be as good a person as she can be, and it shows. There's no acting there. Sorry, Delisi.
Very flattering compliment. Thank you.
Well, it's the truth, right? So if you're a good person, it's going to shine through, especially like that on a Zoom. So at least you have this. And I guess you're going to just have to keep learning, because we don't always look at the person we're talking to in the eye. So maybe there has to be that learning curve too. It's like, do I look at the camera? Do I look at the other people on the Zoom? Do I make sure I'm intentional about not being too busy back here? This chair I've noticed squeaks a little bit. I don't want to use that. What's my background? All those things that don't normally play, you have to do the attention to detail again. And then I guess just be honest and true, which I have a hard time because I haven't had a truthful moment in my life. Yeah, I don't know who I am.
You're right, though. All those things when you have to pay attention to detail are really important now, because when we're doing anything virtually, we're thinking, what's our background? What's our lighting? How do we sound? And then for Michael, I know if I put a podium in front of him, he's going to hate it because he likes to move around. So if he's going to have to do anything on camera, we have to make sure he has the ability to move, because he likes to use his body and nonverbals and feel that connection through his body and his voice.
Interesting. So now you have this idea, like, what do? Do I do just the headshot? Do I do a medium shot? It's called this is called a cowboy, or a full body shot. And then right like that, what's most effective? Because if I'm here moving around a lot, it's going to be distracting. So if I know that I can't stop moving a lot, then I need to place my medium in a place where it's going to be most effective for those watching and for myself. Wow. So you got to, but it's a steep curve because it's quick.
Yeah. And if I'm going to move around, I got to get a cameraman.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And then I got to think about, nobody just wants to look at a talking head for 6 hours a day. So how do I mix up this shot? Can I mix up shots? Can I mix in visuals?
How do we keep it entertaining?
Right.
Yeah. Well, at least you're thinking about it. You're not winging it. You're preparing for the thing you're about to do in a different way. Well, that's the difference. Those that don't simply won't succeed.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll learn like that. Yeah, we're all learning here from which computer works better or not. Like that earlier, I had headphones in thinking, is that the best way to make sure I'm seen and heard? And then I took them out of oh no, that's much better. There are also these types of microphones that you could purchase to use. I'm sure you guys have a audio visual department anyway that's going to coach you and give you all the best equipment. So who knows? That could make the difference, right?
Yeah.
If your Zoom link goes down, and the other person's never goes down, the jury might be thinking, oh, they weren't as good. Like all those things factor in like never before.
I have a question, David. So Michael's going to be doing a jury trial where there's social distancing and he has his masks on. But since people can't see his face, what tips do you have for kind of warming up your body and using your body as an instrument and not just your voice, since that's we're going to have a mask on, so it's going to be different. I'm thinking about, how does he do that in a court spaced out? Or how does he do that in a stadium where he's going to have to pick a jury and the Houston Texans play? How do you use your body in a space that big in this time?
Okay, so 2 questions. Number one, in the courtroom, I would start watching, just really observing people wearing masks right now, Michael. I don't care where they are. And you'll see when people are calm and purposeful and they know they're right, or people that are agitated and nervous and anxious, and how that's going to affect the jury. That's in a smaller setting. And I would practice in front of the mirror with the mask. Because, if you stop, you can project emotion from your body. My shoulders are up, my shoulders are down. Now it means I'm more into what I feel I need to say, right? Now, if I go like this and I need to say this, I might not be as believable. Now, it might work if I had this face I could use and these were supporting it. But now I got the mask and I'm doing this. It looks maybe threatening or certainly not pleasing. So it might be those smaller little movements in the course of the trial at the place that makes the difference. Now, what's this about selecting jurors at a stadium?
Yeah, we'll have 160 people at it's the stadium, the NFL stadium. So they're going to put them in the bleachers, stands, so that everybody can be 10 feet apart from each other.
Yeah.
And so, we'll be having to, and I'm trying to form a group with the 12 or 14 that will be there. So I'm trying to make all 165 people feel like we're all here together when we have to sit so far apart.
I guess you would slowly pace from one part to the other, keep checking the highest to the middle to the lowest to right here. And then you'll notice when I'm talking to someone here, as opposed to talking, and make sure you're addressing the whole entire audience. And you will change your movements here or there. But, when your movement up there, it has to be more intentional and land exactly where you want it to go. Now here it could be, I might be addressing several people down here. But if I'm addressing, people up here, I think you have to pick it's like since you're in a stadium, let's use that metaphor. Yeah. You got to know where the ball's landing. Where are you throwing the ball?
Yeah, you need to know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
But then you don't want everyone else to feel left out either when you're having a conversation with the person up close.
I would suggest this then. You'll have access to the space a day before?
Probably not. I'm going to be able to look at it online to see the drawings.
Can you get there an hour or two before anybody else?
Yeah, no, I will definitely be there before anybody else.
Here's what I would say. I want you to go up in the stadium, in the bleachers. I want you to sit in 4 or 5 places where they're going to be, and have somebody down below address you, and then you'll know what lands and what doesn't.
Perfect.
That's a great idea.
What do you know? Every once in a while,
that's a great idea.
Well, when I go do I do stand up as well. What I'll do sometimes or oftentimes, if it's a new club I've never been in, we'll do a sound check an hour before the audience is let in. You do your sound check, sound guy goes, okay. Then I'll have either my opening act or somebody else be on mic, and then I'll try and walk around the room to see what plays. How does it play here to there to there? Because the sight lines are different. It's kind of the same thing you're dealing with, because obviously I'm very physical. So if I do have some jokes that might depend on the physicality, and I know if I just do the joke this way, the audience over here is not going to get it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I need to make my point here, and I need to make my point here. So, yeah, I guess get acquainted with the room would have been a shorter way of saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. And though at least the courtroom, at least they're going to let us go in and see how it's there. And that's usually something I do. I sit with the jurors who are going to sit. I make sure that we can see things. But we
really are the same girl, aren't we, Michael?
It really is. It's very similar. In fact, a lot of the consultants we use were people that went into acting and just didn't get hired a lot as an actor. And then they go teach us what, the skills they learned.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know where your skill set is best going to serve. You might have wanted to be an actor, but it turned out you're a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're both storytellers.
Yep. Exactly. You're part of it. Yeah. What's your part in the narrative, I guess, would be our theme today. And how do we physically, mentally, emotionally succeed in creating a narrative, first of all, that's workable. And then how do you communicate it with hurdles? But I always think this, there's always an answer. The joy is in finding it. Because we can go, oh, I need an answer to this, and I can spend some time with some consternation of why me, and I shouldn't have to, and this isn't my fault, and somebody else didn't do their job, and blah, blah, blah. Well, so what? You still need an answer. Yep. So you're better off having the joy and finding the answer, because then when you have it, you don't miss it. You're like, oh, there's the answer, because you were looking for it, rather than stumbling upon it.
One thing, I know that when you act, you rehearse a lot. When you do stand-up, you do the same jokes over and over again. But then to be good, to be effective, to to transfer energy and emotion to your audience, you have to be in the moment as if you're living it for the first time. How do you do that? How do you get in that zone, in that moment with something you've rehearsed so many times before?
I think that's the point is rehearse. Because if you're rehearsed, now you're fully present and available because you're not searching. You're here, you're present. Because if I know my lines, I have the potential for more discovery. If I don't quite know my lines, then my discovery is hoping I remember my lines. So it's not going to be quite as good. But if I'm locked down rehearsal-wise, then I'm open to true discovery now that I might not have known before, and it comes to you. Because what you're supposed to do as an actor is listen. Now, oftentimes actors are like, your lips stop moving. It must be my turn to talk. So we're not really living in the moment. So if we can get to that place when we're actually present, and then the camera can capture that, right? Chemical reaction. And maybe you didn't even know that discovery is going to happen while you're talking to somebody. Because if we really listen, we can be in discovery. If we don't really listen, then we're just, it's a one-way street, right?
Yeah. Can you give any examples of anything in any of the shows or movies you've been in that maybe wasn't fully scripted, but because you were in the moment and you knew it so cold and you were experiencing it as if you were that person, it came out and something magic happened?
Well, yes. I will say I'll say in Anchorman, for instance, you know your lines, but we also know, because we were all a group of improvisers, Adam McKay, I came up with him in Chicago. So he started as an improviser, an actor. And then I knew Will from Saturday Night Live. He started as an improviser actor. Paul Rudd, I didn't know as well, but he'd done quite a bit of improvising. And Steve Carell, I'd known for a very long time, and he came up as an improviser. So it's interesting because as an actor, you're supposed to find the conflict in the scene and win the scene, if you will. For comedy, it's a little bit different, but comedy is conflict that surprises you in a different way, a different answer you thought was going to happen. So because we all knew we were all adept at improvising, what we would do on that show, we'd do the scene 3 or 4 times, filming it, right? And then McKay would say, let's let the squirrel out of the bag, which means now we're going to improvise. So you're supposed to be listening anyway as an actor, really listening and hanging on the words of the other person. Now we're going to improvise. I don't know what's going to be said. So I damn sure better be listening now.
Yeah.
Because now either A, I want to have an opportunity, something else, something ethereal happening in that movie that seemed like, wow, there seems to be more than just this scene being done. And I do believe it's because we would improvise every scene. Even though we shot it, we'd also be doing some improvisation. So it kind of puts your head and your whole spirit in a different gear.
Wow. Can you give an example of any scene like that where something magic happened?
It's interesting because when people go, hey, what was improvised, what wasn't in that scene? I'd have to go line by line through the script because sometimes it would be half a line was scripted and then half a line was improvised. For instance, one of mine was, I will take your mother, Dorothy Mantooth, out for a nice seafood dinner and never call her again. I think the original line was, I will tie your mother, Dorothy Mantooth, up on to a chair and drive golf balls at her. Now that's very cruel, though it might sound funny. It's pretty dark. So we were playing with that line, and I was talking to Carell about it too, and he had some thoughts. Now, see, I would have never come up with seafood dinner because I'm from Missouri. Carell's from Acton, outside of Boston. Seafood. So, but to add the specificity of the insult of I'll take your mother out for a nice seafood dinner, right? And never call her again, adds another level of ridiculousness, but it's so specific that it makes the difference in the line. So I know he and I had talked about it a little bit, and I think when at the time that we had an opportunity to do it, it just came out adding several elements together. So there was some preparation, and you kind of like just go, okay, what's going to come down the hopper now? Shoo, bloop, and then that's the one that works.
Another thing I've been struggling with is, we spend all this time learning to speak and learning how to speak, but learning when to let silence hang is.
I don't know a thing about that.
I think you don't give yourself enough credit, Michael, because I think you do a really good job of that.
Well, I'm working
really
on
do.
it.
When I talk to you, you do a good job of just taking a moment and letting that moment be there before either someone else says something or you should respond. And when you do that, I know you're listening.
Yeah, because I used to just talk a mile a minute and, nobody could keep up with me because what I had to say was so important and learning when to use that dramatic pause.
And it wasn't about the interesting part is maybe that you earnestly wanted to get this information across.
Yeah.
It wasn't about saying, I want to leave no room for anyone else to talk. It's like, I really want to make sure they get this point. But I guess the idea is I do have to make sure not only that I'm listening, that they're listening. And if I don't check in, then I don't have the listening. We've all got kids. And really, what does any human being want? We want to be seen and heard, don't we? And you look at your kids and you look them right in the eye, it makes a difference. If you really listen, because how often as parents do we go, just a minute? We say stuff to our family that we'd never say to our friends.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so, yeah, it's that thing of what's important now and how can I make sure that you're important? And of course, it is with listening. If I'm being listened to, then I feel like, okay, I have some worth.
Yeah. And the other thing I've learned that's helped me slow down, one, it's about the audience. It's not about what I have to say. It's about what they hear.
Nice.
And then it's about trusting them. It's about, you're here to do the right thing. And so if I trust you and I give you the tools, you're going to do the right thing. Now, there's times that what you think is right isn't what I wanted you to do, but that's fine. But I can't control other people, and when I've stopped trying, and so instead of saying how am I going to win this trial, it's like how am I going to tell this story? How am I going to communicate? I can't win. I don't have that power. Right. I can't go there and tie up the juror's daughter in the basement and wait for
not anymore.
Yeah, no, yeah. And so
what I think also in what you're saying is showing respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because if you give that, if you let that audience, the jury know that you're respecting their wishes and their intelligence and them to do the right, make the right choice, that will come across.
And anything similar with like when you're doing stand-up's so interactive. Anything with how you approach that audience mentally, get yourself mentally to.
Well, if you're doing your hour-long act, let's say, most comics are doing their scripted act. You leave room for some play, some improvisation, for some magic to happen, and every comic's different. So if you're a one-liner comic, you're less apt to improvise. Set up, punchline, set up. I'm more of a storyteller. And so sometimes there might be a discovery there that you didn't know. You might find a new joke. You might have your 5 jokes in this particular chunk, but then you're like, oh my God, I just thought of another one and it comes out. So you're engaged with yourself and the audience because, like you said, the audience is going to let you know how you're doing right away.
Yeah.
If you're going 5 minutes and you haven't heard a laugh, you're not doing something right.
I think you're lucky, David, because you get to hear their laughs, but when you're in the courtroom and the jurors don't get to make as many noises,
right,
it's a little more difficult.
No, but when you're doing it right, you feel it.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you are resonating with another human being, you feel it. And when you're not, you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then sometimes I'm sure this has happened in a jury box where someone literally falls asleep.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, well, it's not my fault necessarily. I don't know what that person's day has been. I don't know what happened the night before. I don't know if they're a drinker. I don't know if their kids kept them up all night long. I don't know if, they've got a tremendous amount of stress. I don't know if they're actually a narcoleptic.
Yeah. And again, it's learning to trust and not be mad at them and not be mad at yourself, because even if you are being an ass and being boring, there's no beating yourself up doesn't help anything.
No.
At that point in time.
Yeah. That's just adding more weight on the wrong side. Yeah.
Now, have you ever had in stand-up just a night where it just didn't click?
Yeah, that happens to everybody, and you don't know why sometimes. You're off your game for a myriad of different reasons. I can think of one. I can't even remember what city I was in, and it just happened to be a late show, and the audience was really light. Like that week, typically you do 5 shows on a weekend. You'll do one on Thursday, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday. And for whatever reason, I think it was the second show Friday, which typically, like, you can always look, the second show Friday are the hard ones. It's the late show. People have worked all week. They're tired. And typically they started drinking early to go to the Friday night late show. So their attention is oftentimes suspect. So now if I go in there going, oh, Friday night late show, well, now I'm already in a deficit. So I think, my job is like, okay, let's be more on point. But this particular place, was I in Tampa? I can't remember. The audience of a 300-seat house, I think I'd sold out or nearly sold out every show. But for that particular one, there's only 100 people. You're like, what? What happened? And then you're going through your head like, oh, I'm not good. They must not like me in this town. Who didn't get the word out? Was the press wrong? Like, is any of that serving me? No. So I went out there and I was a little bit like, I was off in my head, like just trying to process, like, what went wrong? Am I not enough right now? These things are going through your head. Like, I must not be any good at this because no one showed up to see me. So then there was a bit of a desperation inside me that I wanted to win even more. Now the artist's like, God, I can see he wants something, but it ain't coming out. And then when something wasn't working, you get a little panic. And now you're really outside yourself. And then you try to make adjustments. And then you've forgotten what bit you're even doing, where you are in the show. And then you try to go, well, fuck it. Let's just get to know each other. And for that reason, that night I started, let's whatever. We're a small crowd. Let's get to know each other. But it's a bunch of this. Mm. And then they just really weren't interested. I thought, oh, well, just get through the show then. Some nights you're just not going to have the win you're used to.
Yep. Well, because in trials, both sides work really hard and someone loses. Someone wins and someone loses. And a lot of what is the skill we have to learn in our profession is coming back from the loss. And so, and getting right back in there and not playing scared and not trying too hard. So how do you, let's say you bomb the Friday night late show. You've got to go back out there the next night. You don't even get a few months to recover like we do. You go back out there the next night and you've got to be in the moment. How do you do it? How do you get back in there?
Well, you're going to do some mental prep, first of all, and make sure that whatever happened last night doesn't happen again. And then, fortunately enough, you had a full house the next time. So now you're back on your game, and you don't focus on what went wrong the night before. You look at all the times it's gone right. And I just make that assumption, well, this is going to go well, number one, period. Right?
Trust yourself, trust your audience.
Yeah. So, I always tell people, like, there's that old adage of think of your audience as naked. Well, that doesn't really help because you can't trick your mind. But you can believe this. You've been an audience member. And when you're an audience member for a speaker, you always hope they do well. Yeah. You don't go into, you're not an audience member hoping you come to see something bad. So they're already on your side. It's a bit different fractionally as a lawyer, but certainly the jury hopes you're competent.
Yeah. And they want to do what's right. If you believe that what your side is right, most people go in there not with a preset agenda of saying we want to do something unjust, right? Because we have some bias or prejudice. Most people aren't like that. And so just like you have some jerks that go to a comedy show because they want to heckle the comedian. Yes. But most people go there because they want to be entertained.
Yeah. And then you got to realize the person that's heckling is nervous too, and they just can't stand it, or they're drunk. But maybe they always wanted to be a comic, or they was, hey, Fred, you're the funniest one in our group. Show them. But no, I'll say this to people that won't shut up. No one came to see you. They came to see me. So that's strike one. You paid your money. I want you to stay here. But now you're bothering everybody in this club. And right now, a lot of people don't like you. So will you please just shut But that's if it keeps happening. I have berated people because when they just won't stop and they're just disrespectful, and then they say something, it's like, okay. And usually when they leave and they're flipping you off as they leave, the audience is applauding that these motherfuckers finally just got the heck out. So Delisi told me I had to curse at least once in this.
Yes.
Perfect. Jimmy Carr's a British comedian.
Yes.
He's just, I don't know why I get off on this, but I watch this. He's got the best comebacks to hecklers, and YouTube clips of just him with hecklers. And unfortunately, I can't say them on this show. I could say motherfucker and stuff, but some of the things he did would cause me to lose my audience. But they're really funny. So if you're not easily offended, Google that, YouTube that. It's really funny.
That's a too, because the danger there could be that's the act.
Yeah.
Is that part of his thing now?
Part of his thing is he gets people to heckle him, and then he goes and
yeah. Now, see, the beauty there too is there's only so many ways people are going to heckle. So you probably got 10 different shutdowns for every person that's got one. So you're loaded. It's not like you're thinking of it the first time. You might have a bunch of arrows. Like, dude, I've got 20 things to say for what you just brought up.
No, it's not a fair fight. And he's got
Thank you to everyone who attended Cowen's Big Rig Boot Camp in August. We had an excellent virtual turnout this year and are already thinking of how we can continue to raise that bar for next year. If you'd like to attend virtually in 2021, be sure to mark May 20th, 2021 on your calendar now and save the date. To stay updated with details as they become available, visit bigrigbootcamp.com and sign up for our mailing list. And now, back to the show.
So, back in August, you worked with Delisi and you surprised our attorneys that came to our virtual Big Rig boot camp. And I have to confess, I've got nothing. Delisi did all of that. I just showed up and magic happened. But how did that work? How did all that happen?
Well, Delisi had contacted me through another app where that people can, celebrities can deliver a message on an app. And I had been asked, because we're all in these protocols now, I'd been asked to speak to 600 travel agencies with this woman who was a mother at my kid's school. And she worked for this airline. And I thought, oh, wow. Oh, that's right. There's something that people can't participate in anymore, which are live events for just relief of their week. Part of their week is, we know we have to change things up. And then when Delisi contacted me, I thought, what's this for? Now, typically, see, if it's going to be a huge audience, because normally for this particular endeavor, it's just a one-on-one thing or just for a family. So if it's bigger, typically you go, well, I can't go, sometimes people just ask you to do a straight up pitch for their company. It's like, well, wait a minute. You can't hire me at this price. I'm saying happy birthday. I'm not saying come down to Larry's, Chicken Shack, and Thursday we're promoting this. Like, well, hey, man. But so this was a different opportunity when I contacted her, and I had done another thing for Chris Sorensen, who's now my business partner, where he had an idea. It was going to be a Zoom where 100 people are participating, and he wanted me to do my character, and he had an idea arranged of how he wanted to do it. And I told him, like, look, I was thinking there's something that's not being done in this particular virtual reality we're all living in. And so I did the thing for him, and it worked really well. And like that, it brought relief to the normal day of like, God, I can't sit through another Zoom. And he told me, he said, I can get you 100 of these. I said, I don't want to collect business cards. I want to do a business. And so he and I started talking about it. And then I think about a week later, I got contacted by Delisi, and Chris and I talked, and he said, hey, picture your idea of coming in and actually being in the meeting, not just, a pre-recorded message. And so that was an early one that we did. And then based on that, and the grace that you guys have all shown us and what worked and what didn't, because we're just figuring that thing out too. It was fun. Yeah, great. It was great for me too. And then you figure out, just like you said, this is a different way of delivering the same type of thing. Now, how do you figure out how do you make it work via this box?
And I will say you're doing a great job, because before David reached out to me to plan that, I had reached out to other comedians to try and do something, and no one wanted to do the homework or think of it as from a business standpoint. It was just like a job, but they weren't thinking about why were we doing this? What's the purpose?
Right.
What do we want from this? So when I reached out to David and David was speaking to me, first of all, I wasn't even sure if it was going to be you. I was like, is this a prank? Is it really David? But you were thinking about it the way I was thinking about it as a business professional who's trying to figure out how to navigate through these waters. And I really appreciate that. It stood out.
Oh, good. Yeah. Because, what I've noticed is that in so many businesses, they need Zoom relief.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, they need the morale booster, and they need relief from what's always been going on. So how can we dedicate? And typically you tell me, but my understanding is half an hour is about what you can deal with before you need out. Or like you were doing that very long day and you just needed a break, something different to happen.
Yeah.
So figuring out, well, how can we dedicate something within the framework of what we know, which is actually a blessing, because now you're not all over the place, where we've got all these elements that everyone's going to be familiar with. It's going to be part of this call. So now we just familiarize ourselves within the framework of what's happening. And then you can use all of your, acting and comedy abilities to bring it right here. It's a narrower channel. So it's not that hard. Like you said, just do the homework and you can have a win.
Yeah. So you said you're doing this kind of stuff. You have a new business venture.
Yes. So I wanted to do it right away. And thankfully, Chris Sorensen, a very bright guy, and he's done a bunch of startups, and he's a real entrepreneur. And so we've been very methodical about how we put it together. So now we've got a whole team. We've got a head writer. We've got another writer. We've got the organizational side locked down. And then now we just we're figuring a lot of this stuff out as we go. And we've engaged with several of these event companies, and we've got educated through them. And so now we're really ready to launch this out. And we've developed templates, what we call templates, for each style of meeting that there is. And we'll still be learning as we go. But there's one, we've got templates for specific for the law community. And then for whatever other community, we can take these same modems, if you will, metrics, and then apply them to all kinds of different companies. Because at the end of the day, we're all just working together in one way or the other. So we collect these things, find the commonality of it, see what can be made fun of or what's familiar here that could be used to the advantage that we all share. Because, first of all, we're all humans. That's a good place to start, right? So, it's been a great education for me, too, and we're really ready to launch it. We've done some other beta testing, I guess you call it, but it's been a new venture for me. So I've been smart enough to surround myself with people to know a lot more about some things that I don't know, rather than just charging ahead and making it up as you go. Like, let's do it purposefully. To let the people, number one, to let the people on the other end know that are buying, like Delisi, I think that's the thing we talked about afterward, because that was a big part of it too.
Yeah.
That you lent your talents to us, saying what worked, what didn't, what's needed, what's not. But like that, going back to listening, understanding. And then the number one thing I think you had said was, you as a planner need to know that you can trust it's going to be done and you're going to get something out of it. So you're not, I think I came up with something recently that was actually pretty good. We want you to sleep after you hire us. We want you to be able to sleep the night before the event, because it's going to go well. But we hope you don't sleep the night after the event, because it did go so well.
And it did. I mean, when you and I planned the seminar Zoom that you did with us, there was planning involved, and you did your homework and we asked each other questions. But Michael didn't know it was going to happen. He just had to trust me. And he trusted me because I trusted you and your team, because you guys did a great job asking questions and we all were on the same track. We knew what our jobs were. So it worked out great.
And if someone was
good.
Yeah. If someone wants to look, what's the new venture called?
Oh, it's called Hey Good Meeting.
Hey Good Meeting. Okay, perfect.
And you've got someone you're doing that with too, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I like that. Obviously, I hope to have enough of these appointments that I couldn't possibly do them myself. So we're going to slowly build a roster of talent. And I've been very fortunate, obviously, that I've been doing this for a very long time. And I've got a lot of talented friends that happen to be, actors and comics and improvisers and everything else. Kate Flannery from The Office is a very good friend of mine. And she and I have worked together. My God, I've known Kate for 30 years. And she's just a wonderful human being. And we work together very well. So early on, and Delisi, you told us this, that it's better to have two people out here who can help facilitate it, not just one from the entertainment side.
Yeah.
So everybody can pick up on something, make sure the ball always stays in the air. So I immediately thought of Kate Flannery because she does a lot of these things herself. And so I thought, let's do this together. And so, Kate's going to be doing it. And I've got another roster of people. And like that, I can't move too quickly because I don't, it's one of those things where you don't want to contact a bunch of your friends and say, I've got work for you. And they're like, where's that thing you said we were going to do?
Yeah.
So part of it is I have to be patient enough to not take on more work than I can handle. But once I see more work coming, then I can easily tell my peers, hey, I do have an opportunity for you. And this is the way it goes. Just like, the workings of a trial. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Once we know more and more of what is going to happen from our perspective, our job doing these presentations, then I can inform my colleagues, all you have to do is come in and do this. Obviously, we have the framework of the things that we're going to present. Here's how you fit in, and then just use your talents.
And if any of my listeners are involved in putting, together the big conventions and stuff like that, want to look into possibly hiring Hey Good Meetings and working with y'all, how do they find you?
Well, I think we like everybody else, we've got a website. Yep. Hey Good Meeting. It was available. You're trying to think of names this way or that way, and you don't want to say ha ha Zoom because then it sounds like a bad comedy club, or Laugh Zoom because that, or Z Laughs, then it sounds like a bad morning show on radio. So then it really kind of came down to looking in the area of what's available as a domain.
Yeah.
And then, Hey Good Meeting, we're like, that's good because we want people to walk away thinking, hey, good meeting.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you have a website, heygoodmeeting.com. People can go there if they want to reach out and try and book you for something like this.
Yep.
Maybe H-E-Y or H-A-Y?
H-E-Y.
H-E-Y, goodmeeting.com.
Yeah. Hey, Good Meeting be for Missourians only.
Hey, Good Meeting is ready to help you and your law firm. Whether it's a monthly firm meeting or you just want to laugh with your employees or top referral partners. Maybe you're wondering what to do instead of an in-person holiday party. You now have the opportunity to plan something unique and custom to you and your guests. With a roster of nationally recognized actors and comedians led by David Koechner and an Emmy-winning Saturday Night Live veteran team right by your side. Visit www.heygoodmeeting.com to find out more.
Well, David, thank you so much. I wish you every success on your new venture, and I can't wait to see your next movie or TV show. You showing up to our boot camp. I didn't realize when I saw Anchorman, that was a guy's night. And so my wife had never seen it. And so when I'm telling her that you're going to be on and she's not getting some of the stuff, right. We watched, both movies that night. And she brought so much joy, all these years later, that she hadn't seen it before. So,
yeah, that's the interesting thing too, because my characters are quite, brash and could say some things that aren't good. Your wife might go like, you hired that guy?
She's married to me.
Oh, well, fantastic. Hey man, a pleasure. Great to see you both again.
Well, thanks
for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Trial Lawyer Nation. I hope you enjoyed our show. If you'd like to receive updates insider information, and more from Trial Lawyer Nation, sign up for our mailing list at triallawyernation.com. You can also visit our episodes page on the website for show notes and direct links to any resources in this or any past episode. To help more attorneys find our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on any of our social media outlets. If you'd like access to exclusive, plaintiff lawyer-only content and live monthly discussions with me, send a request to join the Trial Lawyer Nation Insider Circle Facebook group. Thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to having you with us next time on Trial Lawyer Nation.
Each year, the law firm of Cowen, Rodriguez, Peacock pays millions of dollars in co-counsel fees to attorneys nationwide on trucking and company vehicle cases. If you have a case involving death or catastrophic injuries and would like to partner with our firm, please contact us. We have experience finding potential defendants that other firms miss, and we've added millions of dollars to cases by finding these sources of recovery. If you have a catastrophic injury or death case where the policy limits appear to be insufficient, give us a call. If we can find another defendant, we can partner on the case. And if we can't, then we won't ask for any of the fees. You can reach Delisi Friday by calling 210-941-1301 or send an email to podcast@triallawyernation.com. She will coordinate a time for Michael Cowen to speak with you in person or by phone to discuss the case in detail. This podcast has been hosted by Michael Cowen and is not intended to, nor does it create the attorney-client privilege between our host, guest, or contributors and any listener for any reason. Content from the podcast is not to be interpreted as legal advice. All thoughts and opinions expressed herein are only those from which they came.